I invite you now to just take a nice, deep, calming breath, allowing the love and light that is this day to enter you. And as you release the breath, release all doubt and tension, release all anxiety. Just let every bit of negativity go, just for now. And if you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath. Breathing in all that is good and breathing out all that no longer serves you. Allow your body to relax in this moment and allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
Grateful for the good in your life.
Well, I welcome you here today, and those of you watching the live stream, which is live all week. It's on Facebook and it's on YouTube, and people go back and watch these things later, and that's very exciting for us. So we're happy to have you here with us this morning, and we took a detour last week into Mother's Day, and we will somewhat next week offer the theme for Memorial Day. I mean, it's all the same general material, but I want to come back today to the gist of the weekly program that we're working through, which is 6 ways from Sunday, the idea that there's a spiritual life the rest of the time besides this. I love this. I love Sundays. I think you do too, because you could be anywhere, but you're here. And those of you who are watching later in the week, you know, you're getting something out of this, and that's great. But the point of all this, I know you know, is to use what we learn the rest of the time out in the world with those other people. You know, the people we work with and the people we shop with and yeah, the people we live with and the people who are not necessarily on the same wavelength philosophically as we are in this big old complicated world that we have. So what can we do? And I am folding into this some writings by Frederic Keeler and Frances Lord, she's really one of my favorites. I'm just getting to know him, and it takes me a while to warm up to teachers sometimes. You know, squint at their work. He's very direct. I like direct teaching. And they are part of the obscure bastion of spiritual teachers that I bring to you, because this is what I do. This is sort of my niche, rather than the more popular stuff that's current in the world. I find these things for a little bit esoteric and bring them to you if I feel they illustrate spiritual truth. So bringing Frances Lord and Frederic Keeler into it a little bit, what they have to say about all of this. And so today is about, are you blessed or just lucky? Are you blessed or just lucky? Everywhere I go, every dime I spend in retail, somebody is telling me have a blessed day. Do you have that experience as well? And I think that's nice. It used to be have a nice day. Now it's have a blessed day. And a blessed day seems a little more pulled together than just a nice day. And I'm thinking that they're coming at this from a certain spiritual angle, and that's their business and none of mine. So I'll take what they give me and go with it. But at the same time, there's the question of luck. How much of this do we really manage? How much of this do we really control or manipulate or finesse into being? And so I come to Frances. I keep calling her Harriet. I think that's her first. Henrietta is her first name. Henrietta, yes. Henrietta Frances Lord, which that's why it's the initial H. She didn't care to be called Henrietta, so I dare not. She brings us 4 ideas on this. She says, so if you want something in this life, how are you going to go about getting it? You want some good in your life, how are you going to go about getting it? She says, number 1 is ask God. Number 2 is work hard. Number 3 is trust your luck. And number 4 is go without it. These are basically the 4 options people have. Now, you can split some of these up into subcategories and things. She says that if you trust God for it, although the Bible tells us to do this, conventional spiritual wisdom tells us to do this, very often we have less belief, less feeling that it's really going to come about than if we work hard or trust our luck. Because our relationship with the deity in our minds is very complicated and unclear. Luck, on the other hand, doesn't have a personality, and hard work is just hard work, you see. So a lot of times, it kind of goes to the song you just sang, a lot of times we think if I'm dealing with God, if I'm dealing with the deity figure, it's got a record of all of my past actions, all of my failed choices, all of my bad decisions, all of the rest of this stuff, that it's weighing in the balance when I go to that and I say, so God, can you give me a break here? And God is likely to say, well, I've given you lots of breaks, and you know, and yet here you are, asking for yet another one, you know. This is what we carry. I'm not saying this is true. In fact, I'm saying this is completely untrue, but this is what a lot of us carry around with us. It's like, I'd really rather try anything else. It's why God becomes our last resort. Prayer becomes the last house on the block. It's because we think if I have to go to that, I'm going to be found wanting. So I'm going to save that for some really serious emergency that, you know, nothing else will work for. So we work hard. Somebody told me a long time ago that good work is better than hard work. And that made a lot of sense, doesn't it? Good work is like getting it right the first time. Okay? Here's an example. I'm gonna call on Lisa here for a moment. She was telling us as the service was beginning, she said she was typing something into her phone and it autocorrected. Okay? Do you have this experience where it autocorrects? You know, a way to not get it to autocorrect is to use the words that you want to use with such regularity that it's what it autocorrects to. The way to not send out a text or an email or something with typos in it is to pay attention the first time that you do it. I'm not saying she did anything wrong with her phone, because I was telling her, I have on my phone, if for a long time, if you type the word love, you get lice, L-I-C-E. I have no idea why. I never typed lice, but that's what it came up with, you know. But it's like, if you pay attention the first time to what you're doing, then you don't have to undo it. And all the time we're sending out our own corrections, not auto-corrections, to the stuff that we text and email to each other. I meant this. How often do you see that? Whoops, I meant to say this, but I didn't say it the first time. Saying it right the first time is good work. Cleaning up incorrections is hard work. we do a lot of hard work. We dig a hole and fill it in, whereas good work is intentional and so on. And this is, I thought, good advice, you know, to, well, still, I know people who've done good and hard work their whole lives and still don't feel like they deserve, still don't feel like they've won at life because they were cast into some particular role and they took it up and they did this thing, you know, and they feel kind of unfulfilled. And that's sad. So hard work alone won't do it, especially if the motivation behind doing the hard work is to earn your keep as a spiritual being, which goes back to the first idea of a God who judges. You go to God and you say, God said, well, go work harder, you know, on this thing and then come back. But you remember the story of the prodigal son who did nothing, and came back and was welcomed. Why? Because he'd never been cast out in the first place. It was all a mental game. It was all imagery, you know. So she says, if you ask God for something, and what you bring to that request is a sense of inferiority, nothing much is going to come of it. And if you work hard in this life, but from a sense of inferiority, nothing much is going to come from it. And so what does that leave you? Well, it leaves luck, which is there's like this wavelength of good fortune running through the air that we can somehow tap into. Well, that's more true than it isn't. The thing about luck is it's not hit or miss. See, a lot of times you think, well, if I'm going to have good luck, then I have to have corresponding bad luck. Somehow it's all going to, you know, balance out in the end, or the good or the bad is going to outweigh the good, or something like this. But what about if you could cultivate in your life a flow? A flow. Or to put it another way, be in the zone. Would you like to be in the zone? How would you like to be in the zone tomorrow? Or as early as this afternoon, when it's no longer Sunday at Creative Life, and you're out in the world, and you're feeling in the flow, and you're feeling in the zone, and you're saying, things are going to work out for me. Things are heading in the right direction. If things have not appeared yet in the garden of life, it's because they're busy growing underground, and they're about to break the surface of the soil and present themselves in form. I'm going to trust that there is a power greater than I am, right where I am. I'm going to take all theology out of it, even philosophy out of it. I'm going to say there's just a simple power of yes, a power of possibility, a power of becoming, a power of evolution, you know. And it's working already without my input. But if I choose to consciously cooperate with it, I will step into a flow, and I'll be contented, and I'll be happy most of the time, more of the time, or at least as a default. Nobody's happy all the time, nor should we expect to be. But to have happiness and contentment and a sense of purpose and meaning and value and all of this in your life as a default is a beautiful and wonderful and very possible thing. You know, to have this sense that there's this wavelength you can tune into. And how do you tune into it? Well, a way that we teach here is through affirmative prayer. But back of affirmative prayer is simply the belief that there is such a wavelength. That in itself is an affirmative prayer. We don't have to get all worked up about it, just to believe that there is such a thing. Like all the things that we believe in that we know are there when they're out of sight. When we're out of sight. Friday, this past, was a brilliant day for new beginnings. Fear not if you missed it, because it's now Sunday. But astrologically, astronomically, it was what was called a black moon. Have you ever heard of a black moon? I had not either. I've heard of blue moons. The blue moon is the second full moon in a month, or the fourth full moon in a season. And a black moon is the second new moon in a month, where the moon is not visible at night, or the fourth in a season. And this is a time of planting. This is a time of setting new intentions. The full moon is a time of harvest, and the 2 quarters are, the waxing and waning lead up to or away from the fullness of the thing. Well, in a full moon, in a new moon, you can't see the moon, but it's still there. You can't often see it in daylight unless you really hunt for it, but it's there. And I don't have to tell you, there's still a moon out there, And everything that you love and hold dear that's not in the room with you this morning, or whatever room you happen to be in, you still know that it's there, and you trust this. We put our money in banks and stuff like that. Your car is in the garage. Things are out of sight, but you know that they're there. But when it comes to this, and don't get me started on electricity and gravity and all the rest of the material laws, But when it comes to there being a power for good in the universe, sometimes we'll put up an argument. Well, I can't see it. Well, where is it? And what's it doing? And what's it going to do for me? Well, it's a matter of trust. You have to trust the thing is there. And how this seems to work is you have to step out in faith before you've got solid footing. You step out in faith, and the thing catches you, and then you know. So accomplishing this sense of trust, this sense of, shall we call it, luck, good luck, everything falling together, even when it appears to be falling apart, that's a way to walk through the world. It's a wonderful way to walk through the world. You have confidence. You can trust people. You can trust the process. All of this is going somewhere. So I'm quoting to you some Frederic Keeler, and I'm quoting to you some Francis Lord. I haven't really gotten to Keeler yet. I will. But I'm also going to bring in, this came up this week, somebody who has nothing to do with New Thought so far as I know, except they do, is Brian Eno. You know Brian Eno? Considered the father of ambient music. Brian Eno of the band Roxy Music back in the day. I was reading somebody who was quoting him, and then I went to Brian Eno's own work and found a couple of really interesting things. And one is that all error is unconscious intention. All error is unconscious intention. Now, this is a person who works in music. He's a composer, principally. And when there's discord, it's unconscious intention. When there's concord, it's unconscious intention. Everything is unconscious intention until we make it conscious. But it all remains intention. So this is a way of looking at your life. You say, well, that situation didn't work out. Well, on a deeper level of intention, it's working out on a higher plane. It's working out as something else. I didn't get the job, so there's a better job. This thing didn't happen, so there's something greater waiting to happen that I unconsciously intended prior to this moment, prior to my awareness of intention. I set a course, and I've drifted off the course, but there's a deeper current running through my life that is correcting me back onto that course. And I thought, what a powerful way of looking at things. And then his second line that I just love, he says, and this takes some run up, but the idea is that all of us are trying to be good at something. And whatever it is we decide we want to be good at, we tend, especially when starting out, but this applies to all of us, even those of us who have been doing more or less the same thing for quite a while. You try to be good at stuff, and so you look at the people that you sort of idolize their performance at this. You say, well, if only I could do it the way that person does, And the problem with that is it's inauthentic, because we're kind of stepping into their flow in a way, their wavelength, trying to pick up on information or energy that's really sort of directed to them. It's imitation, they say, is an amazing form of flattery, but it's still imitation and it's still flattery. So he suggests being as authentic as you possibly can in what you do. And he puts it this way. He says, shoot your arrow, then draw the target around it. Wow. I had to sit down when I read that. I thought, Actually, I was sitting down when I read it. But I love that. Okay, shoot the arrow, then draw the target around it. Say, yeah, this is what I intended to do. And it's strange and different and not at all what I thought was going to happen, but here we are. Huh? And so this is coming, you got to understand, this is just not some armchair philosopher. This is coming from a person who created a whole form of music, a whole genre of music, with others came along too, but he was head and shoulders above the rest. And they called it elevator music. That's what ambient music is. It's elevator music. And so he put out an album when he was kind of accused of this. He put out an album called Music for Elevators. In other words, just own it. Just stand in it. Yeah. And it's not just, noodly pointless. If you listen to it, it goes somewhere. It has something to say. It has something to say, even when it's non-lyrical. So this is a way of standing in your truth and confidence. Well, how do you do this, Well, you got to trust. You got to trust. Less in the universe, more in you. Less in all the philosophical abstractions of how the whole system works, and more in the fact that you've got a mind, and you've got a heart, you've got something to say in this life that only you can say, and how you know only you can say it is you showed up to do so. You're here. You're here. This is real. What's happening here is real. It's not coming in the next life. And she gets, Lord gets into that, where she says, we think, oh, maybe this is just a rehearsal, what we're doing here, and the real time comes later. Which brings me to Keeler. He talks about choice. He says that the one common conscious faculty that all of us have that we can agree on is choice. You can make a choice, yes or no. Yes or no, up or down. Make a choice. Make a choice. He says we over-elaborate and we, again, fill our minds with all sorts of complexities. He says, consider the rat. Consider the rat before whom you place 2 pieces of cheese. The rat is going to pick the best piece of cheese, and then it's going to pick up the piece of cheese and it's going to carry it to the best place to eat it. You can be certain that the rat is going to do this. This is what rats do. They don't get all worked up about, do I deserve it? Or is this going to happen again? This is something else people do, right? Whoa, cheese. I wonder if I'll get some more later. No, it just does its thing with the cheese. It doesn't worry, he says, about bad karma. It doesn't worry about an afterlife. It lives in the moment, and it's hungry, and it's cheese, and I'm going to eat the thing now. And he says we could learn a lot from the rat. In other words, and he's writing this some time ago, and but you read more recent material that talks about animal nature and how we humans could learn from animal nature, because animals, we've been over this, folks, animals and plants and stuff are free, spontaneous, generous, non-judgmental, live in the moment, give great unconditional love, particularly the animals, the plants too, but it's more obvious with the animals, We could learn a lot from this, but we overcomplicate things and so forth. So, are you blessed? Well, blessed is a little bit problematic because it supposes a whole theological structure, and it also tends to be a little parochial in that you got to be the right religion. And you got to have done the right things in the right religion to be blessed. And you're blessed so long. It's very conditional on this. So long as you're in the right religion doing the right things, then yes, there's a special path for you. And well, here's the real truth of the thing. All religions are the same in terms of the deity they use. They call it by different names. They have different stories about it. But there's one power. There's just one power. And if I make up a rule, I was thinking here in creative life and religious science altogether, maybe it would be fun, at least for a while, if we knew it was going to end, to have a lot more rules. To have a lot more. Wouldn't that, like not forever and always, but maybe, I don't know, just come up with something that you can't do this unless you have that. I was watching Mel B up here when she was playing the crystal bowl during Danielle's meditation and inner healing experience, and she had her hand. She's playing the bowl with one hand, and she had her other hand dutifully on the chest. Why? Because it's a rule. Well, it isn't really, but it's a custom. Danielle asks you to put your hand on your chest. She doesn't require it. She doesn't go around checking everybody. You, get that hand on that chest. No. But I watched Mel with the one hand on the bowl and the other hand on the chest, and I thought she should have a hoop that she dangles, and then a beach ball on her nose.
That was hard enough.
Isn't that great? Yeah, We could make up a bunch of rules, and the only reason we would want to do that would be if by following them, we gave ourselves more permission for joy. That would be the only reason. That would be the only reason. Now, the fact of the matter is each of us makes up our own rules. We don't often share these with other people. We say, well, every time this happens, I'm going to feel this way. Okay? The next person who says this to me is going to get that back in. And we make up rules and schedules and paths and stuff for ourselves. And then forget we did so, and they become patterns in the subconscious mind. And so when we don't follow through, there's a hitch because of prior conditioning. And something kicks in. That's why we want to become aware of what we've put in place in our lives. A lot of us, when we were little kids, were taught to say our prayers before we went to sleep. Do we still do that? Back then it was God bless Mommy and God bless Daddy and God bless, and then a list of stuff, right? And I wanted this, and I want a pony, and I want a, race car, but do we still do that? Do we take time every day for spiritual practice? Do we take time every day to be grateful? All of these are ways to bring ourselves into that flow of good fortune, that flow of feeling that leads us somewhere, to walk confidently through this life and believe that things are working out for the best. Brian Eno says, try to set up a situation that presents you with something slightly beyond your reach. I love that one too. You've heard the line of one's reach must exceed their grasp, else what's a heaven for? To exceed your ability to seize the thing, to grasp the thing, to possess the thing, and simply to touch the thing, just to reach it, just enough to touch it, like the, who's it, Botticelli, the painting, no, Michelangelo, the painting of God touching Adam's finger, I guess, the creation of everything, to touch it but not have to possess it. Why do we not have to possess it? Because it's ubiquitous, it's universal, the good that we seek. It's everywhere around us all the time. To believe in belief. To believe that all of this is leading somewhere. To say to yourself, this or something greater is my divine inheritance. And it's the divine inheritance of this world and all people on it. Everyone is walking this path. Everyone is believing something and inviting something into their lives. From time to time, they will see you. They will look at you, these other people, and they'll wonder why it is you carry yourself the way you do through this life. We've talked about this for years. Back in the day when everybody commuted to offices, which I guess is coming back, I don't know. We called it the water cooler conversation. In fact, There was a column in Science Mind magazine for years. I think it was called I Refused the Verdict. I know that was one of the columns in there. Maybe this had a different name, but there was a column in Science Mind magazine for years where they had like first-person stories, and they were cute. And if I can find some, I'll bring them to you and do some talks on them. Because it would be like, for example, somebody got on a train. This is old, so this is like 1930s era, you know, dated, funny stuff. But somebody got on a commuter train to go home from work and sat down next to Mr. Negative, right? And Mr. Negative is sitting there, my boss is blah, 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 you know, and just ranting about their miserable job. And the person this total stranger next to them on the train, and this person that they're talking to is a religious scientist who says to them, "Say, friend, have you considered changing your outlook? Have you considered that perhaps if you had a different expectation of this person that things would work?" And so on, you know. And a light bulb goes on. Well, I'm going to try it because I'm about ready to quit my job because the boss is such a jerk, you know. So this guy on the train made this sort of strange suggestion. I've never heard anything like it, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try forgiveness, and I'm going to try gratitude. I'm going to try these different virtues out and see what happens, you know. And so they do. And it turns out they're the one who's writing the article. See? They're saying, well, I came out the other side. So they had a whole bunch of these kinds of things. What I want for each of us is a life experience like that, where when we're not teaching something, we're learning something. And we're out there in the world as a positive example instead of a warning. You know? I've heard it said, and musicians like Brian Eno may have even said, you know, I lived my early life as a warning to others. Well, instead of being a warning, you know, how about a positive example of what you can do? Here's another way to handle this. And we show this in the world. We show this in the world. I drove here this morning about 10 minutes later than I usually do on Sunday morning, and there was a lot more traffic. There was church traffic. How I knew that is because they were turning into various houses of worship along the way. And everybody in front of me that I saw, every single person used their turn signal, even when just changing lanes. You know why people do that? Because it makes life easier. If you know what it's okay, yes, it's tipping your hand and it's invading your privacy a little bit to share with other people that you're about to, you know, swerve down a street in front of them. But still, it's like, if only it were that easy. But we start with that. We start with giving each other a break. And we start getting, and then we move on to the difficult conversations that we have to have as a society, as a human family, you know? Like the one that's going on in Washington right now about the debt ceiling. How awesome would it be if everybody, whatever your politics are, how awesome would it be if everybody got around a table and said, okay, what do we got to do to make this thing happen? I want this. Well, I want that. Okay, well, can't everybody have what they want? So let's, you know, there's this, and now we'll negotiate here, and we'll compromise there, and will it be tense? Okay, and will it be fraught? And okay, and it's necessary, and you got to have the difficult conversations sometimes. That's what it means to be a grown-up, you know? So in order to do all of this, and I could go on and on, but it's time I wound down, as you go through your week, remember the principles that we learn here and that we share here. There's one life. That's all you're going to run into in this week. I don't care who it is or what they're up to. It's going to be part of that one life. And I don't care where you are. If you go to the other side of the world, if you go to Mars, where, by the way, they're setting up, did you see this down in Clear Lake? They're setting up around the Johnson Space Center a 3D printed isolation chamber, basically, where 4 astronauts are going to live for a year without coming out. That's going to mimic the climate and stuff of Mars in preparation for a time. And they're going to see if these 4 astronauts go screaming over the hill after, as I would, after a week or two, banging on the door, let me out of here. It's like, well, you don't make the cut for the Mars trip. If you're kicking out a window in the isolation chamber, you know. But I tell you what, we get to Mars and it's all happening there, and we set up human colonies and all of the rest. You know what? The same principle, the same power is going to be rightfully centered there. It's in the Crab Nebula. It's everywhere. It's in the past. It's in the future, and it's in the now. Just this one. So as you go forward in your week, what I encourage you to do, take a nice deep breath, head into your life, and say everything is working out for the best in every area, in every set of goals and ambitions and dreams and stuff that I have. Everything is working out for the best. If there's anything I need to know, it makes itself known to me clearly and unmistakably. If there's anything I need to let go of to enter into this experience, I shed it like a skin. It's just up and gone, you know. Whatever needs any adjustments, any adornments to me, anything that will support my greater good and the greater good of those I serve as my human family. It's now easily and effortlessly occurring. So let's just know together, one life, one power, taking all this and making it so in our lives, because it's always been so in infinite life. So now for each of us as persons, as creators, as agents of healing, for each one of us, a path opens up where there was no path. A path through a wilderness of newness, of unexpected terrain. And it's easy for us to follow this path and widen it for those to follow. Yet each of us possesses our own experience, feels our path differently than anyone else. For each one of us is not simply here to accomplish, but to create, to discover, to reveal in unique ways. And so the spirit of life, right where we are, is breathing through us, moving, walking through us, supporting us, reminding us, comforting us, calming us, and resting us in equal measure as we move into greater and greater expressions of joy, confidence, conviction, and love. For this knowing, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
So it is. Joining us. If there's anyone here online for the first time, please let us know that as well. We would like to properly welcome you. And for everyone else, welcome back. Thank you for being here and being a part of our service. We always love the fact that you come and you join us. We know that you have lots of options, and so we are grateful that you choose to be with us. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your energy, for your presence, and especially thank you for your monetary donations. It's because of what you give to us that we can be here and give back to you. And now I invite you to say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Announcements. And then, so I'm going to take two of the things that Reverend Jesse talked about today and smash them together. So he said he was talking about what we could learn from animal nature. And then he also said, shoot your arrow and then draw your target around it. And immediately what popped into my mind, because I have cats, but I've also seen dogs, and honestly small children do the same thing. It's like when they go to do something and it doesn't work out the way they expect, they just kind of shake themselves off and pretend that that's what they intended to do anyway. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do in life. It's like, all right, well, that didn't go the way I expected it to, but hey, I'm going to run this direction for a little while. So, you never know where you might end up when a path opens up you weren't expecting. Don't be afraid to try it. The path less traveled. Robert Frost. So in that vein, I invite you into that consciousness. There is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And each and every one of us, we live that life. That power and that love and that presence is channeled through us into this world. And really amazing things happen and really interesting things happen. And sometimes things happen that we don't expect and take us to places that we didn't even know existed. And so I'm knowing that when that path kind of slips out from under us, that we quickly find our footing and go to amazing places and do amazing things that we didn't know we were capable of until the path slipped. And we find out who we are. I have a hint for you. We are beloved children of God. We are God in action. We are spirit in motion. We are godlings. And there is nothing that we cannot handle, especially with a little help from our friends, our practitioners, our loved ones, our family, our community. So feel free to chase that star and know that you will always be held by spirit. And so I am grateful for this knowing. I am grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for this place that teaches this teaching. I am grateful for our ministers, our practitioners, our musicians. I am grateful for the technology that allows us to send this out into that universe, chasing that star. And I am grateful for each and every one of you. And I relax into this knowing, releasing it into that law, into that love, knowing that it is so. And so it is.
With me.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
and
it.
I love it.
And I love it.
So it is.
And so it is.
Thank you for your patience, y'all. That was a challenge.